Hey folks, E-King here, and in this video, we're going to talk about homegrown terrorists right here in America. So over the weekend, 3 terrorists from my home state of Kansas, of all places, were arrested for trying to blow up a housing area full of people. But the 3 terrorists did not look like this. And in fact, this is who they are. I'm going to roll a couple of news clips here that's explaining and talking about the whole incident in full detail. And then we'll come back on the back half and wrap it all up.
In connection with the plot to attack a western Kansas Muslim community. Those men who claim to be part of a small militia group said that they hope that their deadly attack would, quote, inspire other groups to wake people up. The disturbing announcement was made at the U.S. Attorney's office in downtown Wichita.
Many Kansans may find it as startling as I have that such things could happen here.
Acting U.S. Attorney Tom Beal gave details on the FBI's investigation that centers around these 3 men, Curtis Allen, Gavin Wright, and Patrick Stein. They were arrested today in their hometown of Liberal, accused of plotting an attack on an apartment complex known to house a small community of Somali refugees in Garden City.
These charges are based on 8 months of investigation by the FBI that is alleged to have taken the investigators deep into a hidden cause of hatred and violence.
According to investigators, the suspects, all in their 40s, were part of a small hate group calling itself the Crusaders, and they weren't afraid to express their anti-Muslim views on social media. These posts were from Curtis's Facebook page. FBI Special Agent in Charge Eric Jackson didn't elaborate on how the men came to their attention, but said that the suspects were stockpiling weapons and their plans were imminent.
These individuals had desire, the means, and the capabilities, and were committed to carrying out this act of domestic terrorism.
According to the FBI, the men had planned to target churches, public officials, and landlords, anyone who tried to help or support the Somali Muslims. They finally decided on this apartment complex in Garden City, just 70 miles east of Liberal. Their plan was to park 4 vehicles filled with explosives at each corner of the apartment complex and simultaneously detonate the bombs, causing one large and deadly explosion. The date, November 9th, one day after the presidential election. Tonight, the men are being held in the Sedgwick County Jail. If found guilty on domestic terrorism charges, they could face life in federal prison. Those 3 men will be in federal court for their first appearance on Monday.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to point out real quick. If you saw where that arrow popped up there at the beginning, it said it was titled Terror Attack, not terrorists. And forgive me, man, that's like a mouthful. Try saying that 3 times fast. But and matter of fact, the reporter did say terrorists, okay? But I want to know how come they were saying that they're only being charged with making a bomb and making a weapon of mass destruction. Okay. The other guy did even say this is an act of domestic terrorism. And then the reporter went on to say, well, if found guilty on domestic terrorism charges, they could spend life in prison. And that's true. They could, if they're charged with something, they could spend life in prison. But I want to make some clarification here, guys. There is no federal charge called domestic terrorism or domestic terrorists. Now, personally, I think there should be. And I think this should be hitting the mainstream news and media, just like you see it when terrorists or individuals from other countries try to blow up Boston or other places, for example. Or more specifically, when other countries get bombed, and it's all over our news. How come this isn't hitting the news like that? I just wonder. Now, in all fairness, I am getting ready to play a clip that was from the national news. That first clip we just saw was from our local state news agency. You're going to see this next clip from the national news. But I just want you to think about those 2 things. And then also look at how I guess kind of what I'm saying is it almost seems as if these certain types of people, the charges are getting watered down. I can't help but think what those charges would be, or if they would already have been shipped off to Gitmo if they looked a little bit different. That's all I'm going to say. You can fill in the blanks. Give me your comments as usual. Let me know your feedback on this, though. What do you think?
Attack on a Somali immigrant community in Kansas. Authorities say 3 members of a right-wing militia were arrested in a plot to attack a mosque and housing complex in Garden City. We're told the attack was aimed specifically at targeting Somali refugees. Justice reporter Paula Reed has been following this from our Washington bureau. Paula, first question, what do we know at this point about the suspects?
Tony, very disturbing details coming out of this case in Kansas. We know that the FBI opened a domestic terrorism investigation into these 3 back in February of this year. These 3 called themselves the Crusaders, and the militia group was anti-government, anti-immigrant, and anti-Muslim. They met regularly to discuss different ways to attack the Muslim community. And as you noted here, they were charged with attempting to blow up a housing complex that included a mosque and many Muslim residents.
How did they even come to the attention of law enforcement in the first place?
According to the court documents, a paid, confidential human source. This person, he or she, attended several meetings with the Crusaders and was concerned about what they heard. So they reported it to the FBI, but they continued to attend meetings. And this source reports in the court documents that these folks met as often as once a week, and they would even surveil their targets. They would go and conduct surveillance at spots where they knew there were lots of Somalis and lots of immigrants. In fact, in the court documents, the source reveals that while they'd be surveilling these targets, they would yell things at female Somalis who walked by. And Tony, these things are so graphic, I can't even quote them on television. But he would say that, they frequently referred to Somalis as cockroaches and said several times that they needed to eliminate the Somalis.
So this is coming from a paid confidential source. Confidential sources are common. There are many reasons why those sources cooperate with law enforcement, but being paid is one you don't often hear. Is that a problem as they move to prosecute this case?
Well, I'm sure the defense attorneys might try to bring that up. It's actually the first time I've ever seen that descriptor in a complaint. You, of course, don't get a lot of information about the confidential human source in the documents, particularly the initial ones. So we don't know too much about this person. All we know is this is someone who attended several meetings, was concerned, and went to the FBI and somehow received some sort of payment. Now, one of the men also had a domestic dispute with his significant other, and she also led authorities to a room in their residence where he was storing bomb-making materials. So they've certainly come to the attention of law enforcement in several ways, but it seems that this confidential human source is key, crucial, really, to this case.
Domestic terrorism comes to mind when you hear a story like this one. Why are they not charged with domestic terrorism?
I know a lot of people have that question. Since I broke this on Twitter, a lot of people have been tweeting.
So there's a couple of points that I want to bring to your attention. Okay, by the way, if you want to watch this news clip in its entirety, go to their site and you can check it out there. I just didn't have time to put it all on my video because I try to keep my videos condensed to 9 to 10 minutes and 11 minutes sometimes. Studies show that's usually how long I got your attention span for. So anyway, getting back on the grizzly here. The 2 things I want to point out. First of all, one of the things was, did you notice how, especially at the end, how he stated that, hey, domestic terrorism comes to mind. How come they're not being charged with that? And the real reason I want you to see, and do you see exactly how he was spinning it and deflecting your attention away from the true fact that these are actually homegrown terrorists, okay? And these people are people that are against America, all right? And they were preparing to go and blow up an entire complex, like a city block of people that actually had the right to live here, all right? The other thing I want to point out is how they are in the media now. They're calling them the militia, and almost like that's a legitimized term. Versus, even though it's still bad, it's better than terrorist, is my point. Okay, not calling them terrorists, they're a militia. Just kind of wanted to point that out. As far as I'm concerned, that's why they need to be called terrorists, and they should be treated just like terrorists. Okay, but one of the things I want you to pay attention to those facts, and like I do in all of my videos, that's why I always say, do your own due diligence, gather your own information to determine what the facts are. And sometimes the facts can be very different from the truth. Just a little FYI on that. Okay, bottom line is these are terrorists. Fourth, Fifth, and Eighth Amendment should not apply. Go ahead, lock them up, send them to Gitmo or one of those other floating off the books prisons that no one's supposed to know about, although you can see them all day long from Google Earth or if you get on the deep web. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and PM me and I'll break it down for you. Well, hey folks, that's going to do it for this video. As always, hit that like button. Let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. And just know that myself and the entire Ben group is always watching over you. So if there is ever anything that I can do, just let me know.